One of them fell off. Look at that. Do you see? And I saw this the moment I went to put my new earrings on. And it doesn't matter how much these cost, that made me like just smile. I got scammed for 500 pounds like last month. And I was actually so freaking happy. Everything you lose, if you have the right mindset, you get it 10, 100, 1,000, a million times back. What does it mean when you lose or break something? I'm gonna share today why that can be really amazing on a spiritual level. Because most of the times when we break or lose objects, especially the most valuable and treasured personal belongings, it can seem really annoying or tragic, but actually it's a big spiritual indicator that you're making room for something much better in your life. And I want to start off by saying, if you're losing things and if it's like a constant pattern, that could also mean you need to slow down, pay attention, and see through what's happening around in your surroundings, because it might be like something might be sabotaging you. But that's one meaning. The bigger meaning I want to get to you today in this video is how oftentimes before we have a major clearing in our life to make room for like big upgrades in different aspects of what we have, what we want, to bring that in, you might be tested, you likely will be tested, and also have room physically made in your life to bring in the new and improved versions of what you desire. So one very specific example that's so synchronicitous that I cannot like design this myself if I tried. So yesterday, I was out in the morning and I came back around noon back to my art studio at my flat, and I got a package in my mail, and the postman arrived like right when I got home, first thing. And I got these beautiful rock crystal earrings from my friend Beatrix, who lives in Paris. She's a jewelry designer, and we'd lost contact for a long time, and there was a sort of like uneasy energy there, as sometimes that happens in friendships sometimes. And it was just a bit uncomfortable. But I was thinking about this recently, and I actually purchased a pair of her beautiful earrings because they truly are like so well made and so elegant. I purchased a pair of them for one of my friends' birthday in Paris. And I think she saw my address from the payment details, and she sent me these earrings that she gave to me as a gift, like right before I left. But I left before we could like sort of resolve whatever. And I got these in the mail. And the moment I opened these to put them on, because they're so beautiful, I noticed right here, the earrings I've been wearing for the past like 5+ years, pearl Mikimoto earrings, it looks like this. One of them actually broke. One of them fell off. Look at that. Do you see? And I saw this the moment I went to put my new earrings on. And it doesn't matter how much these cost, that made me like just smile. Because I can see through these messages that some of your guardian angels or your higher self may be sending you constantly, but it takes cultivating this awareness to really notice what they're telling you. And what I knew in that moment was for a lot of the good things to come into our lives, we need to cultivate an environment where we can maintain that. And that includes a certainty and trust of letting go of things that you might have outgrown already or are very attached to see like how to test your will and resistance and your certainty of creation. Because if you want to like bring in something, that's a form of creativity, right? Just like art. And it's testing like your attachment in a sense, right? And when you break or lose things, it actually takes a lot of divine alignment to have a scenario come into your life where you will lose or break that object as a form of like karmic regulation. So one of the reasons this happens in our lives when we break like our favorite objects, because these earrings that I broke, not that I broke, I mean, the pearl fell off with regular use over like 7 years, I think. What happens is when you lose precious, meaningful items, and they were a gift from my mom, when you lose or break these sort of items that have a lot of value, sentimental or financial, whatever, it's a sort of karmic balancing, because everything in this life is a form of like energy exchange, and that happens in different formats. And breaking and losing objects is one type of this energy exchange. So it's clearing, first of all, it's clearing a lot of karma or checks and balances that you haven't like regulated, or not regulated, I'm mixing my French and English, that you haven't réglé, so you haven't like balanced out. Maybe you owe some energy here and there, and then you haven't paid that back. You could have like stolen some sort of energy from someone unintentionally. This could be in the form of time, attention, not just money, other resources. And then you're clearing that before you can bring in new, bigger gifts in your life. This is what I sense on a psychic level, looking back in my past memories. Now that like my higher senses have opened up, I can actually sense out things I did not notice before, even just by checking through my memories, like my visual memories, my sensorial memories. I can tell like if I was having a bad day, for example, and I was taking a bath in my little studio in Paris. After I got out of the water, the bath water, I could see like this dark energy in the shape of a little person almost, or like imagine you take off someone's skin and then you like, a bit morbid, yes, but imagine you like peel off a person's skin, or like, and then you put it in the shape of a pool of water in a bathtub and it's floating there. For my higher senses, this is what it looks like when you had a very cleansing bath and it's removed that negative energy from you. That's sort of what it feels like. And when I look back on moments in the past years where I've broken, lost objects, or even gotten my like energy, time sort of stolen from me, I can see like how there are these strings, these cords that tie you to like these events and the people involved. And these energy cords are very, very real. So gift giving, losing, receiving, creating, it's all a sort of energy flow, right? And when you, for example, if you're tripping a lot, dropping things, that often means you really need to ground yourself and be more present and sensorially open. Not just open, but like perceptive of your surroundings, because they're telling you a lot of messages that you're ignoring. That's one thing that happened to me when I was just like trying really hard to stay in Paris, even though I knew I was meant to go somewhere else. And these earrings are sort of a closing of a circle or closing of a gap, because it was a gift that hadn't arrived. And in that sense, it's uncomfortable for both sides when there is something that's like owed, right? And it's really beautiful because in spite of like this little tension between my friend and I, you resolve all of these tensions in your life with grace. So what is grace? Understanding someone's beautiful, positive points, and understanding that when they don't necessarily align completely with that they're just having a bad day, and it's like any negativity you might sense from that other person is not a character trait of theirs. Because I truly believe that to love someone, which I think in the optimal version of the world, there would be plenty of love and no scarcity of it. And then you wouldn't need conflict and all these negative things, right? So what is love for me? It is sensing and seeing, knowing the most perfected, beautiful version of someone, and willing that, projecting that into reality through your interaction with them. So I see like all of my friends' good qualities and I just lean into that really. And that's why I decided to like get one of my friends some jewelry because from this lady, because she does just like make really nice jewelry. And I understand that any sort of conflict that might have, or like distance that might have occurred since I moved, it's not from negative flaws necessarily in our respective characters. It's just a bit of friction that comes with human interaction, you know? And it's not to be taken as negative personality inherent traits, right? I think that's a good definition for hatred, or like those negative sentiments where you just focus on the negativity of someone and then bring out more and more of that. So it's what happens when relationships break off, right? It's like you say you love someone, but actually it's a form of hatred and evil eye and curse because you see all the flaws and then you pick on that and then it goes bigger instead of like seeing what's good and then bringing more of that. Not saying that you tolerate negative stuff or disrespect, but more like you can just accept people for who they are and then continue and embrace their good qualities, right? So what does it mean when you lose something, you get scammed, or I don't know, like your investments take a hit, or let's say you have a sentimental object that just disappears or cracks, you lose it? What does that mean? Could be a very big karmic clearing, could be moving things around, moving energies and timelines of reality around to make space for the new and improved version of everything you've been wanting. And you've got to think of it from this perspective as well. If everything on your vision board, in your dreams and all of that, if you're living in that version of reality already, would you losing these sort of, or breaking these sort of objects in your present really bother you that much? That's really a test of certainty. So another example that just came to mind from my childhood that I feel inclined to share. When I was young and my family first moved from Canada to the US in Texas, we did not have a lot of money. We just did not have the means to have a lot of what my classmates had. Like their own house, for example. We lived in an apartment and that was like a big chip on my shoulder or whatever for the longest time. And I remember many times when I was in elementary school, I would steal. You heard me right. When Wan Lin was in elementary school, before she learned to be a little princess, she was a little gremlin that would steal from her classmates because she felt life was unfair and that she needed to use her own hands to balance things out. Let me tell you something. Everything you lose, if you have the right mindset, you get it 10, 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 times back. But it takes a certain will of certainty and influence over your destiny through that certainty. So what I was doing when I was a child, and what I know now on the spiritual level, is when people steal or when people scam, it is from their fundamental belief and operating system in that sense, their programming, that things are just unfair for them, and to get what they want and to survive, they need to take from others without giving in return because no one gives to them. So it's a sort of like egoism, right? Because our reality is basically a mirror. So what was happening when I was a child and stealing from my classmates, it was obviously resentment from like them having, I suppose, like a house with a staircase and things like that. Like I remember this one time a girl brought a souvenir. It was like little gold flakes and alcohol inside a small nail polish size bottle that she brought to show and tell, and it was so sparkly. And I wanted that so much. It was so beautiful, and I felt it was so unfair that my classmates could have like those nice presents and souvenirs and I couldn't. And actually took it from her desk during recess or break one day, because our desks had these like little compartments beneath it. And I looked at it for a little while. I liked how the gold shined. I love jewelry now. I really do. I've always have, but like when I was younger, I rejected that. I rejected femininity. I rejected liking jewelry and stuff like that because I was trained to be practical, to only spend money on food, rent, and bare necessities, and to only work hard, study, because that's the only way you can be of use. That is like slave programming. That is very, very, very diminishing, and does not necessarily, that sort of mentality is not life affirming, I would say, for some people like me. So what happened then, I also stole Yu-Gi-Oh cards, like huge handfuls of Yu-Gi-Oh cards from one of my classmates' backpack. I was like in second grade or something. Around that age, I stole Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I drew a naked picture, a picture of a naked lady on a clipboard, and framed it on my classmate because he had a crush on my best friend at the time, and she was giving more attention to him during recess than to me. So I framed him for drawing a naked lady, and then and then he started crying at the principal's office because they called in his parents, and then their parents, I'm so sorry, Connor. I just wanted to spend more time with Abby. But Connor's parents came in and then told the principal, our son is not capable of drawing something like this, as in his drawing skills were not adequate to draw a naked lady on the clipboard. And because I signed his name by Connor on the bottom, so I framed him. And then my teacher, God bless you, Mr. Porter, he knew, he knew I had a lot of talent and great potential, but I did not necessarily have the environment to direct that in the right way. So he always encouraged me to draw, and I drew a picture of a restaurant, and one day ended up in the principal's office, like in a frame, which is really cute. Yeah, so that is the definition of grace. You don't necessarily focus and punish and smite all the negativity you see. You observe it, you accept it, you don't turn away from it, and then you nurture the good qualities so they take up the space of the darkness. And that's what happens when you lose things. Like the fact that I notice this is what I see the moment I get these new earrings, and it was just in time for, it happened yesterday actually. It happened just in time for me to wear them and go see like a jewelry exhibition that night. That was happening like last night. And I wore these to the event, and everyone was like, I can read and sense out thoughts, and everyone like really loved these earrings. And it was at like a major jewelry house in central London. And I noticed people really like love these earrings, and they're wondering like, what are those? And let me tell you another really cool thing about objects is, this is a bit tangent, but a big key component of having good style is not wearing the most expensive things. It is about taking what you have, noticing the beauty and potential in objects, and coordinating them, wearing them, displaying them on yourself in a way that maximizes their radiance. So there's a very different result when you style an outfit based on what's the most expensive versus what's the most harmonious and beautiful and original. And when you can wear things like jewelry and clothes properly, you are like bringing light into their existence, and they have gratitude for you in return. Whereas if you feel inadequate and you go shopping and then you wear expensive things because you feel like that's the only way to compensate for how unworthy you feel, that gets a very different result, okay? Just keep an eye out on that, okay? So what can you do when things like this happen? Notice it and be grateful. I got scammed for 500 pounds like last month, and I was actually so freaking happy. If you watch David Guillaume's Kabbalah videos, Kabbalah class, you've heard of the story where his company fell for a wire fraud for 1 or 10 million. 1 million or 10 million, I can't, some $1 million wire fraud. And then he was about to like go into darkness and negativity, but he stopped and checked himself and went upstairs to like do the thank God for, he started dancing around and like saying, thank God for wire fraud. You have to go see that video. It's so funny. But I had my thank God for wire fraud moment. Thank God my Mikimoto earrings broke moment. It's just like, oh my gosh, I can see it's releasing negative energy from my past, and it's a form of payment in that sense. It's a form of payment into this matrix, this machine, this spiritual reality for what you're about to receive. And this has occurred like over many times, like over your life. That is why like sometimes before you have a great opportunity, you had a lot of challenges sometimes. Like that's when I was in high school, I had a lot of mental health issues, never diagnosed, just endured. Awful, really. And it exuded from my entire being. Just horrible emotional state. And right after several years of that, I got to go to my dream art school in Paris, where they accept like about as much as like Harvard, I think 5% of applicants. Yeah. And it only cost me like 400 euros a year. So a lot of your blessings are paid for through karmic regulations. And a lot of that can show up as these moments of loss, perceived loss. But once you get to a certain point, you notice like all of these losses, they're actually gifts or premonitions of gifts. Because energy hates to be stagnant in our world, okay? What do you have any sort of like broken pearl earring moments in your life? Because you might, instead of like getting really upset over it, which would be like understandable, but still think of like that pair of earrings on your vision board, or the one that you've put on Pinterest and your Instagram albums, you favorited, that you don't necessarily think you can have in this lifetime, and then think maybe it's making room in your life, or likely is. I truly believe that, for something much better. And as you know, there's a give and take in life. You earn the most beautiful and great things in life, and you also enrich yourself by giving, because nothing's ever like one directional. That's why if you use dishonest business practices, that's what you get back. It won't last long term necessarily. If you are too taking in any relationship, that will eventually fall apart. And another thing I want to share with you, a really useful practice I have that I just developed today, to be honest, is you can actually, okay, it's too sunny here. You can actually charge anything you give with the power of your intention. So I stopped like selling my secondhand clothes or like my clothes on Vinted, because my account didn't transfer over countries and I decided I can't be bothered to start over. So I have like beautiful clothes. This is a brand new Michael Kors red dress. It's really hot. But it's not really my style anymore. I got it when I first moved here. And I am going to donate it today to the Royal Trinity Hospice. And you can actually charge these donations with your intentions. So a lot of these energy exchanges, these spells, you could call them, we don't do them consciously, but they're effective regardless. And when you put words and sentences on your intentions whenever you're doing something, it amplifies the effect, because you're directing, you're focusing that energy. And focus makes things happen faster. And what I put the item over my heart space and I charge it with my intention, saying I want this to go to the right person. And I'm giving this away with the intention of specifically releasing any need to draw attention in the wrong ways, any I'm releasing my impulse to get attention in any way possible, or that craving for attention. And I make space in my life to shine in the most natural and authentic and beautiful way that only I can. And this is my intention when I give away this beautiful dress. And may it go to the right person. I trust that it will. I trust that it shall. There you go. A little lesson on the give and take of the universe and why you can celebrate when your valuables break or you lose them, because you're getting something much better. But it takes understanding that. And if you only see these moments, like you're getting scammed, you lost something, you lost your wallet, lost your earrings, jewelry, whatever it is, if you only see it in a negative way, it may delay the good thing that it's paying for karmically. Like, oh yeah, I didn't tell you this scam story of like, the story of how I got scammed from 500 pounds. So let me close this video with a nice story about how I lost, or I didn't really lose. I paid it forward. Someone scammed me of 500 pounds. Recently, I think a month ago. So what happened was I was going to the Royal Academy to see an exhibition of art in central London. And in central London, it's kind of hectic energy, pretty intense. There's a lot of people at these intersections, and coming out of the Green Park tube station, you go to the Ritz, then you cross the street, and then you go to the Royal Academy. And at that intersection by the Ritz, there was this really tall, this peculiar looking young man. He was very tall, pale, and looked like a big baby. Like, he had very baby-like features, but he was super tall and pretty like hefty. But he looked like a big overgrown baby that was very tall. So like he had an unusual appearance and like very bright blue eyes. And he looked at me and said, "Excuse me, miss, could you help me with something?" And I'm like, whenever someone approaches me with an inquiry, I know now that it's not a coincidence, because coincidences don't exist. So I say, yes, what is it? And also, like, when you have spiritual insights and advice, part of learning how to live with that is understanding you don't give unwarranted or unasked for advice. You share your insights. If it's extremely compelling, yes. But generally speaking, you don't share your like psychic insights randomly with people when they don't ask for it. You can tell them when they ask for it, with a few exceptions. So I say, yes, what is it? What help do you need? Because when you help people, when you make donations, that's also very good for bringing in things. And then he says the story about how he and his brother lost their wallet because his brother fell asleep on the train. They need money to go back to Cardiff in Wales because they're from Wales. And then I'm like, okay, how much do you need? £250. And I'm like, I don't have my phone on me because I don't carry my phone on me when I go out. It's too distracting. And though like people don't steal stuff from me, it's just uncomfortable to have like something so distracting and energetically charged on me. Like, I don't imagine myself ever wearing like a smartwatch. So what happened was, I say, I don't have my phone on me. And then he says, oh, I don't have cellular service, so I can't like call anyone for help. So I'm like, so you need me to give you £250 in cash? And he's like, yeah, because like we don't have a place to stay, we need to go home. And at this point, I'm like, okay, this is a test from the universe. This is definitely a test from the universe, because stuff like this does not randomly happen in my life, I've noticed. So I'm like, okay. I ask him a few questions and he feels very genuine. So at this point, like looking back, the level of his convincingness, how much he had to practice or train for that, he earned the money he scammed. Like, I'm sure he did. He basically earned it. So I go to Barclays. I go to the teller because the machine doesn't give out that much. And I'm like, so you need 250, but you said you're with your brother, so doesn't he need money as well? So wouldn't it be like 500? He's like, yeah, my brother's in another area of London nearby asking for help. So I'm like, okay, I'll give you 500 then. And then I take out 500 pounds and I give it to him in an envelope and I write Calon Lan on it, which means pure heart. It's a beautiful Welsh anthem. It's one of my favorite songs ever. Go listen to it if you're curious. But it's really a beautiful motto for life, the lyrics of that song. So I wrote Calon Lan on it because he should be able to understand Welsh, right? And that was the intention that I charged into that money. Because, you know, money absorbs the energy actually of the sentiments and the feelings in which it changed hands. Yeah? A lot of money moves through people and moves through institutes, organizations with a feeling of frustration. So you feel this unclean energy, and that's why some people have issue like containing more. That's another video that I'm gonna film after, okay? Stay tuned. So what happened was I handed him 500 quid in this envelope and off he went. And the thing is, listen in. When I handed him the envelope, I put my hand on his forearm and said, take care and use it well. And in that moment, when I touched his arm, I could feel that there was no energy of gratitude there. So I knew that it was a scam. But I just wasn't psychically like, oh, I haven't trained my psychic abilities or clairvoyance to that level, which I can like immediately read people's past lives. I need to like really tune in, and then like it clears up for me. I can see and know things. So I haven't gone to that level yet. But when I touched his arm, I felt no energetic discharge of gratitude and love. It was just sort of like cold and dead, kind of like a souvenir keychain in a big London souvenir shop where there's no like charge of sentiment in it. But if you like buy it, you take it home, you give it to someone, they use it, then the soul comes into that object. But when I touched that young man's arm, I could feel there was no energy of warmth or gratitude. And in that moment, I knew I got scammed. But I just watched him walk away into the crowd. And I knew that that money, whatever that was, has not been lost. Because it affirmed to me this sort of confidence and reassurance that 500 pounds does not make or break my life. 500 pounds, I can live a great life with or without it. And the version of me that I'm calling in, because we're constantly growing, right? To not grow is to die, right? To not grow is to negate your life force. I knew in that moment it was a form of payment for the kind of person I would be in the future. And the future already lives in the present, right? And so does the past. So that's my story, or my stories, those are my stories, on what the spiritual meaning of losing and breaking things actually signifies in your life, in our lives, and why it's not necessarily always a bad thing. Okay? Let me know if you have any similar experiences, if you've had some like shakeups in your life recently, or if you ever like lost an object and found it again, or you lost an object that was like really important and then like something changed in your life, because that's happened to me so many times. Okay, I love you all so much. You can find me on Instagram under La Princesse des Beaux-Arts, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more art, lifestyle, and spirituality content from a young artist, growing nonstop. Always very curious. So have a beautiful day and have a beautiful life, because you all very much deserve it. We all do, just for existing. Okay, bye.